where will Chris Paul end up? Because we obviously have, big news about Chris Paul. If you didn't know, Chris Paul was technically released by the Clippers, but they are looking for a trade for him so that they don't have to, let him be a free agent. Because obviously, if you make a trade and stuff like that, it's some kind of some kind of like fuzzy thing just flew in my face. So if you make a trade, obviously then the Clippers can get, something back for him. So that would be the ideal situation for them. It is obviously very sudden, like it happened. Obviously, Chris Paul, a reunion with the Clippers, and then all of a sudden, like, they are releasing him. Again, he hasn't, to my knowledge, he's still technically, on the roster. But the fact that they were just like, he's done, right? Somebody said Warriors in 4. Well, I mean, the Warriors, if you watch this page, I think they have, potential to do something good this year, make some noise. But obviously we're not in the playoffs yet. But, so I hear you on that. So the Chris Paul thing, like, a lot of teams I read are waiting for Chris Paul to become a free agent, which makes sense because obviously, they would rather, get Chris Paul for free, quote unquote, than have to make a trade for him. Because at 40 years old, Chris Paul is obviously going to not have the same value, that he did 5, 10 years ago. So I think, especially with the new CBA, I talk about it all the time, the new CBA, I think teams are hesitant, to make trades, for players who are, 40 years old, just in general anyway. So, like, especially someone like Chris Paul, who at some point will probably, become a free agent if the Clippers can't find a deal for him. So, where do we think Chris Paul is going to end up? Like, where is Chris Paul going to go? If he is not traded and, he's free to go wherever, I don't know if this is a long shot or if it makes sense. I could just see him in Milwaukee with Giannis, but is Giannis going to be traded, That's the thing. And I know they have, Ryan Rollins. Shout out to Ryan Rollins. I mentioned him on this channel already before once. Ryan Rollins has been doing great things for Milwaukee. But I don't know if they're, looking for another point guard. I'm not sure, but I could just see Chris Paul there. But we don't know what's going to happen with Giannis. That's the thing. So, for Giannis, if Giannis is potentially traded, that makes things different, obviously. If Chris Paul, you see, the thing about Chris Paul is he's been on a whole bunch of teams. I heard that the Knicks are not likely, even though they wanted him like originally, and now it's like, probably not, which makes sense. They're doing fine. What team would, I don't know. I feel like again, Chris Paul's been on so many different teams. Like, I wouldn't say back to the Rockets. You know, I wouldn't say OKC again, obviously. I wouldn't say the Spurs, the Warriors, not the Suns. um, Someone said you have lovely hair. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Um, may I don't know, but maybe the Sixers. I'm not sure, but maybe they can be in contention for him. Sorry, I just hit my leg. That's the noise you heard. Maybe the Sixers. Again, I don't really know what team is, because again, Chris Paul is, 40 at this point. And we know his injury history, and, so I don't expect him to play, 40 minutes a game. Um, so it's tough. But I'm sure if Chris Paul is free, he will find a team, right? Like, I don't think that's a question. I don't think that's a question at all. It's just a matter of who, because I don't know if a trade is going to get done. That's the thing. Yeah, it's it was definitely shocking when we heard the Chris Paul thing. And now everyone's coming out, with a story about their time with Chris Paul and all these kind of things. And, you know, I'm sure, I'm sure if you're Chris Paul, you're not thrilled with, how this is, going right now. Because you have the whole Scott Foster thing, and, everyone's going to have their own opinion on that. But it's just like, I saw, I don't remember who, but another ex-NBA player saying that he was difficult, and just like, people have their opinions on what they believe Chris Paul is or isn't at this point, obviously, in his career, but I'm sure it doesn't feel good for him to, like, read people saying he's, like, difficult and all these things, and I feel like it's starting to, get, like, a little bit of a reputation, even if it's not true about him. Like, I feel like it's starting to, like, become that. I don't know whether it's true or not. I don't know him. So, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like that is starting to, follow him. Again, whether it's fair or not. So we'll see what happens with Chris Paul, but, keep your eye out. Keep your eye out for Giannis. We never know. We don't know where Giannis is going to end up. We keep, seeing, Giannis saying, oh, I'm going to stay and all that, but we'll see what happens come trade deadline, because Milwaukee is in, like, 10th now, and obviously Giannis is injured right now, so we'll see. So, thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I hope you enjoyed, and see you soon.